Welcome to meeting number 27 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Accounts. Pursuant to Standing Order 1083G, the committee is meeting today to undertake a follow-up study on Report 9, Investing in Canada. The 2021 report of the Auditor General of Canada does not seem to be correct. I'm just going to skip that, take that back. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. I will jump back to that last paragraph. The first part of our meeting will be conducted in public to consider two motions. Should we complete those two motions, the discussion, we will then go in camera to review the Public Accounts 2021 report. Compte tenu de la directive du Bureau du
Given the BOIE's directive of March 10, 2022, all members and persons taking part at the meeting must wear a mask unless they are members of Parliament sitting. And to ensure that the meeting...
To send, wait for me to recognize you and push on the icon to activate your microphone and go.
Dans la salle, si vous souhaitez prendre la parole, veuillez lever la main. Pour les députés sur Zoom, veuillez utiliser la fonction « Lever la main ». Le greffier du comité et moi-même ferons de notre mieux pour maintenir l'ordre de cette parole et nous vous remercions de votre patience et de votre compréhension à cet égard. If you'd like to indicate which motion you're presenting and then speak to it briefly, please.
Oui. Alors, merci, monsieur.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say good morning to all my colleagues. As I mentioned last Thursday, I tabled a notice of motion, and now it would be time to discuss the motion. I have two here before me. I don't know, Mr. Chair. We'll debate one and then the other. That would be ideal. I'll read it again. I'll read it slowly so that the interpreters rather, can do their jobs properly and I can help them out with this. So that in accordance or pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee undertakes a study of the expenditure of nearly $100,000 in public funds by the Governor-General of Canada for catering services during an 8-day tour of the Middle East in March 2022, and that the committee invites the Governor-General to appear before the committee for a period of 2 hours on or before June 23, 2022. I will now explain why I put this motion forward. Mr. Chair, a few minutes? Yes? Yes. Right. So, as you know, the information we received regarding the Governor-General, who ran up significant expenditures, of course, it caught our attention. These expenditures for the common mortals, these are huge numbers. Our work here in committee and elsewhere in committee is to at a time when we are hearing from our electorate and our residents that they are having more and more difficulty making ends meet, it is difficult to hear this. The Governor-General has spent a significant, not to say any worse, amount of money. What we have as information is that the trip lasted 9 days. Since we spoke, we got new information because the media was able to go get more information, and it clarified everything for us. The information has been clarified, but not enough to not have to look at it in committee. So I'll give you some information that appears to be correct, brought up by the media, according to the the Department of Defense. The Governor General and 29 of her colleagues, I don't know what else to call them, they are people who went with her, plus 17 people from security services and crew and management, logistical support went. It's not 92 or 98,000, it's 80,000. I'm not sure why the number was decreased. But this was to pay for 2 dinners and 3 breakfasts and snacks. No alcohol, no dinners, not for 9 days. I put some numbers down because most people, looking at these numbers, would like to associate the numbers to what it means in their lives. I mean, I'm one of these regular people. It's huge for me. I mean, $5,000 in snacks, those are some snacks. I mean, those are some snacks. That's not, you're not going to buy that just anywhere. $5,000 in snacks. Yep, really, they really went for it. $399 per meal, and breakfast and lunch for all members, even those who are part of the crew, supposing that it's an open bar for everybody. I have the following questions. Perhaps I have more, but just to start, to show you to what extent this is strange and we're lacking that information. I mean, who are these people? 29 people, who are they?
I don't disagree with the member's right to bring such matters to committee, and I won't say that the issue needs to be dismissed out of hand. I'm not of that view. However, because I get the feeling he's getting ready to go on, as a courtesy, I suppose, before he does that, I would ask you to confirm with the clerk whether or not this motion is in fact in order. Because I don't see, with all due respect to the member, how it fits within the mandate of the committee. I've looked at the mandate letter closely of the committee. I just don't see the fit. So that I would put that to you, Chair, to confer with the clerk on that.
Alors, M. Terrien, juste donnez-moi quelques minutes.
Mr. Terrien, if you could give me a few minutes just to respond to that. Yes, of course, no problem. I mean, yes, that question is a good one. Yeah. I agree with the member.
I was like you. I did review the standing orders to see if this this motion was in order, and after reviewing the standing orders, consulting with the clerk, I believe it is based on the standing orders, which do outline a number of areas that we are meant to study year in, year out. In particular, the reports from the Auditor General, as well as the public accounts on an annual basis. But the standing orders also permit members to bring forward other areas of study should they wish to do so. I mean, I can cite, and I think I will, because I hope we won't belabor the actual motions themselves. But 108(1)(a) states that the subcommittee shall be empowered to examine and inquire in all such matters as may be proposed by committee members. 108(2)(c) and E also state that as well. E in particular, that we may study other matters relating to the mandate, management, organization, operations of the department as the committee deems fit. And then finally, 108(3)(g) in that vein as well. Public account shall include, among other matters, public account shall include, among other matters, review of and report on public accounts of Canada and all reports of the Auditor General of Canada. Pardon me, hold on a second. That's not quite the point I wanted to make. Just one second here. Sorry, the commentary in Standing Orders 108(2), 3, and 4 states a standing order include a blanket reference permitting a standing committee to examine any matter relating to the department as it deems necessary and worthwhile. So I take your point of our priority and where we ought to look at, but the standing orders do not preclude members from bringing forward more motions like this.
Just again, Chair, this isn't a slight towards you at all. I'm looking at the mandate of the committee. It's in front of me here. All of it relates to the Public Accounts of Canada. All of it relates to the work of the Auditor General. This committee has worked, I think, very well together in the pursuit of that, and we still have some outstanding business to deal with that falls in line with the mandate of this committee. I still don't see how this particular motion, which, to be frank, if it was going to come up anywhere, it would come up in the Defense Committee, not here, because Defense was involved in the approving of the funding. I just don't see it. I don't know if members around the table have a point of view on that, but it's hard to see still, even based on your explanation, how something like this can be referred here.
So I think I'd ask you if you can point to something in the standing committees that preclude it, and I think the standing committees don't do that. They allow for additional studies and motions like this to come forward.
Based on that logic, with all due respect, Chair, we could have anything and everything referred to the Public Accounts Committee. If it doesn't have a relevance for this committee, I don't think this one does. I just fail to see the relevance of it. Well,
this motion relates directly to the expenditures of the in this case this voyage, and Public Accounts is tasked with the reviewing expenditures after the fact.
But the mandate of the committee is to look at the work of the Auditor General, and it is the Audit Committee of Parliament. We're not. There's nothing in here about the work of the Governor General and things of this nature. I'm not saying that the matter can't be pursued. I just, I would rather get on with business that we've been working on already.
So, to that, the estimates are reviewed by government operations, but this committee is tasked with looking at the expenditure side of things. So,
I suppose, Chair, one possible solution is to look at whether or not there is a precedent here. Has this committee ever looked at anything relating to the Governor General and spending under that by the Governor General or their office or anything along these lines? I think that if there has been a time where this committee looked at that, then a precedent would be established, and looking at the motion of the colleague would be in order. But again, the mandate letter is clear that this committee is tasked with the work of the Auditor General and engaging on the public accounts of Canada. And none of the public accounts of Canada are very specific. They don't refer to just the general public accounts in the abstract. We're talking about something very specific. The reports of the Auditor General fitting within that.
Sure. So 2 points. One, whether or not there's precedent doesn't necessarily weaken or reduce the committee's opportunity to bring forward motions it deems fit. And number two, a mandate letter does not supersede the standing orders. The standing orders are what actually governs Parliament, and the standing orders do not preclude this, and in fact, in numerous cases, grant this committee to look at, examine areas within its mandates that its members wish to bring forward. And so that is what we have here, and my ruling is that it is in order.
Again, Chair, I don't want to challenge the Chair, but it may have to get to that point. Can you point again to, because you keep referring to the standing orders, Can you go over that again? Because
Sure, I'll do it slowly. And then I will hear others if they want to speak on this point of order as well. Because once it is challenged, there is no debate. It goes immediately to a vote. I'm just going to read, je vais lire en code ces points ici, Mr.
I'm just going to read these points, Mr. Terrien, and after that I'll give you the floor.
1A. The committee shall be empowered to examine and inquire into all such matters, and it lists several. And then specifically, as may be proposed by committee members. So there's a broad opening there that allows additional motions and studies to be considered. Let me go through them. 108.2c. So at the top, the introduction, in general, the committee shall be empowered to review and report on, and it lists a number of them. C, the immediate, medium, and long-term expenditure plans in the effectiveness of implementation of same by the department. So let's talk. These are immediate. They've in this case they've happened. E, I think, is stronger. Other matters relating to the mandate, management, organization, or operations of the department as the committee deems fit. So again, that is both latitude to do so, and again follows up by should this committee deem it fit. And then finally, 108.3g. I did cite this before, and I went back. Public accounts shall include, and these three words are pertinent, among other matters. So public accounts shall include, among other matters, review of and report of the Public Account of Canada and all reports to the Auditor General of Canada. So while that's specific to those two reviews we do, it does not preclude this committee looking at other matters. And then finally, the commentary from the standing orders. The standing orders include a blanket reference permitting a standing committee to examine any matter relating to the department as it deems necessary and worthwhile. So I was looking for examples that might disallow it. I didn't find it. And not generally, our rules are the standing committees. They are in place. They are the governing body for committees as well as Parliament. And they, in many cases, do indicate what can't be done, and where they are silent or where they offer an interpretation that allows debate. My view is that debate should be allowed to happen. So I was going to go to Mr. Terrien first, and then I'll come back to your side.
I was just going to make one point.
Well, no, I said to Mr. Terrien, I recognize him. Oui, Mr. Terrien.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Écoutez,
Too late. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hear what you've decided, your decision, and I approve it. I agree with it, obviously. I had done my homework, and I had prepared, as you have done, my arguments as to why this motion was in order. So I developed a whole list of arguments for it, and what you've just said really comes back to what I found as well, what we found on our side. So we are quite satisfied with your decision. What I'm hearing from my colleague, my Liberal colleague for whom I have a lot of respect, does not change my mind at all in terms of whether this motion is in order, which it is. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's move on.
Yes, Mr. Fragascatos.
You just, the point that you had made, I think it was your second last point, Mr. Chair, on other matters, does not preclude other matters coming to the committee, I believe.
Just let me have a look.
Yeah.
So in the standing orders, 108.3g, public account shall include, comma, among other matters, comma, review of and report on the public accounts of Canada and all reports of the Auditor General of Canada. And then the commentary, which I wasn't sure when you said the last point, the commentary was the standing order includes a blanket reference permitting a standing committee to examine any matter relating to the department as it deems necessary and worthwhile.
Okay. So all of that may hold. However, the sacrosanct principle of committees, as I understand them, working on them now for almost 7 years, is that the mandate of the committee is the absolute key. So other matters may come to committee, but they must fit within the mandate of the committee. And the mandate is extremely clear. We've been over it. I've mentioned it at length. You yourself acknowledge that it is all about the work of the Auditor General of Canada and the public accounts of the country. Again, to emphasize the point to Mr. Terrien and colleagues around the table, I'm not saying that this issue should not be taken up. It can be taken up, of course, but it can be taken up, for example, at the OGO Committee, which covers expenditures. This particular committee, as the Audit Committee of Parliament, covers the reports and expenditures of the Auditor General. So I think that the member can bring it up, but not at this committee, because I still make the point that I don't see how it fits within the mandate of this committee. Everything that you said there in terms of the standing orders, it holds. However, it's always the reflection always is that it must. Those principles are subservient to the idea that the mandate of the committee is the most key. If a committee is to look at an issue, it must fit within the mandate of the committee. And I wouldn't want to see also, I asked about precedents before, I wouldn't want to see a precedent established where we have pursued a matter that fits outside of the scope of the committee, and then we have issues coming up here, let's say in the fall, that are outside the scope of the committee, and we can't carry out the important work that clearly would fit in the mandate, that is the work of the Auditor General. So that's my point, and that's why I still maintain, with great respect, that it is out of order.
Yeah. Mr. Dong, you had your hand up briefly. Do you have a comment? If not, I'll go to Ms. Shanahan. But
I'll say my comments in debate.
Ms. Shanahan?
Thank you, Chair. And just following in that line, moi j'étais sur le comité des...
I was on the Public Accounts Committee in 2015. It was impressed upon us how this committee is unique among other committees, that we are there, that we are to work on a consensual basis, that our reports are anonymous. Our work is already has a framework because it's the Auditor General who works with us regarding the expenditures. It's very important. I agree with my colleague. This is the raison d'etre of this committee, to ensure that Canadians get the value for their money. But because in this case, it was the Department of National Defense, the armed forces that oversee the expenditures of the flights for the Governor General. That's mandated by the security, by public safety as well. The Governor General has no choice in the matter. As a representative of our country, she will be assigned this kind of security. That's completely in order. We've already seen some changes, some specifications. Perhaps there's something to look at there. But usually it's something that should be studied at another committee, as my colleague suggested, even perhaps at the National Defense Committee, as it's an ongoing situation. But on our end, for us, we get the benefit of hindsight when we see public accounts and the Auditor General's report. We can benefit from her work, from the work of her department, and we can do that with without getting emotions mixed up in it. It's really clear, did we get the value for our money? And I agree with my colleague here. I don't see how these two motions, in fact, should be dealt with in this committee, and this precedent that it would set would be worrisome for our committee.
So, je vous attends, Madame.
I hear you. Ms. Shanahan and Mr. Fagis-Carros.
I relied on for this decision is that while we are often seized with the reports from the Auditor General, one of our overriding functions, of course, is to look at the public accounts, which is a summary of all expenditures across the government. Now, perhaps we should spend more time on it than we have. Both this year and previously, and perhaps we should in the future. So the fact that this committee does address government expenditures to see how they fulfilled their mandate, to me is what makes this motion in order. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to hear any more points of order on this. If members have rights that Mr. Fagis-Carros alluded to that, which they can exercise, because I think, Mrs. Shanahan, we're also getting close with your point of order to debate again. And I think there are many points that can be raised about this motion, which touch on parliamentary convention with respect to the Governor General, but those aren't points of orders relevant to the ruling. So that is where I landed and where I maintain my position. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Thérien to continue his introduction, and I would hope that he would be somewhat brief so we can have a debate on this. Merci.
Oui,
Thank you.
merci, Monsieur le Président. Je vais essayer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I had pretty much already gone over my proposal, why this motion needed to be defended. Just another point that my colleague, my neighbor from Châteauguay, stated was that the management of public accounts is the raison d'être of this committee, and that's why I want this committee to be aware of the situation. And I had almost finished my points, actually. I had stated that there were some issues to come back to. It won't take long. Why 29 people? Who are they? All we got as information?
Do I have unanimous consent to continue for another 15 minutes?
Generally, we don't.
No, you do not.
That's fine.
So
I need someone to suspend the meeting for the vote. On va suspendre la réunion.
We'll suspend the meeting for the vote.
The floor.
Point of order, Chair. Point of order.
Dueling points of order here. So, Mr. Fragascatos, go ahead.
Sure. Chair, I wonder if you could ask the clerk to clarify just a few things, because if we are going to have a debate or discussion on this, I think that we have to be aware of certain things as a committee. And I still maintain that the motion is out of order, but there's other things as well that I think colleagues need to consider before we continue with the debate that we're having. First of all, if we were to carry out this work, if a report was to be worked on and completed by the committee on the matter, would it be rejected by the Speaker if it was deemed outside of the mandate? Because the Speaker could come to the conclusion, I think would come to the conclusion, to be frank, that it would be outside of, that any report focusing on this would be outside of the mandate of the committee, and all the work that the committee would have done would have been for naught. The second thing I would ask you to confer with the clerk on is whether or not the Governor General could ever be summoned to appear at this committee. I don't believe that's the case, but I think that we ought to hear from the clerk on that. And finally, if you could get the clerk's advice on whether or not this committee has in fact looked at matters pertaining to the Governor General in the past. I had raised that before, but we didn't get an answer on that.
So I'll address two of the three because I raised those exact same points. And the answer lies in part about what this committee decides. I've just ruled the motion in order. The committee during the debate is free to set the scope on any report. I know there's been reference informally to the 2004 review of the Governor General's expenditures on another trip that drew headlines. And I would note that motion is substantially different than this one. That talked about reviewing the estimates. This motion talks about reviewing the expenditures, which I think is an important point of differentiation. But it is possible that the Speaker could rule it out of order if this committee takes allowances beyond its mandate. I don't believe this motion does that. Number two, a question I also asked. This committee, Parliament, does not have the power to order the Governor General to appear. However, the wording in this motion is invite, which is quite a bit of which is different. And your third question was: had this committee ever heard from the Governor General's office?
No. Have we ever looked at matters relating to the Governor General's work?
So I will, because my mind only goes back so far. I'll ask the clerk if she has an answer to that, and I don't know if it goes back to 1867, but we can ask.
I have no recollection. I think that the analyst might be better placed to answer that, but it would be in a report from the Auditor General if we had studied it. So I don't see any reference in any of the reports of the Auditor General's office, but.
Go ahead.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to greet everyone. Since 2015, when I started, we did not have the studies regarding the Office of the Auditor General or rather the Governor General. Those expenditures that are for daily functioning are done by the Secretary to the Governor General, and the overall expenditures that are sometimes funded by National Defence for overseas travel, and there's also Canadian Heritage for some of the facilities, for some of the ceremonies. So from 2015 till today, no, we don't have anything. We tried to look through some older reports. We didn't really find anything. In 2003, 2004, there was an OGO committee report. They looked at the expenditures, the budgetary expenditures of the Governor General, but that was at OGO. But
saw you signal as well. Mr. Duncan, you have the floor on a point of order, not a debate about the motion.
Right. I think, correct, Mr. Chair, and thank you for giving me the floor. I would just say from a perspective to the question of relevance and being in order, I do believe it certainly is. You've related to the standing orders that are. I won't refer or start debate or anything on the second motion that is going to be debated today, but just allude to the fact that, as we're reminded often, we can't force the Auditor General, for an example, to undertake a study on something, but we could recommend and have our voices heard. I think the motion that's before us is in order. I mean, precedence, as you alluded to earlier, is not a reason for ruling something in or out. We as a committee have the opportunity to look at and examine and set our agenda and the work that we want to do. And frankly, I think I'll have some constructive comments during the debate to the motion itself. But I will say I do believe it. Is it common practice? No, but does not rule it out in terms of being within our means and abilities to do so, is to have witnesses come to speak to this issue, to perhaps provide public testimony that could, I say this respectfully, the independence of the Auditor General, provide some public testimony to perhaps why this issue needs to be studied or reviewed. And I will just note respectfully, without getting into debate, we've seen in the public discourse over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've seen the Governor General respond, we've seen it batted over to defense, we've seen it foreign affairs, and everybody seems to be having this. So having officials being able to speak to this could provide some background or public testimony as to perhaps why the Auditor General or our committee feel further that this needs to be talked about. So I certainly think it's within scope and reasonable to do so, and we can get to debating the merits of it and perhaps some friendly amendments and some other things that can strengthen the quality of the motion before us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duncan. Mr. Desjardins, on a point of order.
Yeah, on the same point of order on scope and relevancy, I think that I agree that, of course, there's merit to the question that this committee may do these things. But, of course, we have to consider in many regards the work of other committees. As we know, this same motion is tabled in another committee, OGO, and the analyst just pointed out that it's been reviewed in OGO in the past. So there's a precedent there, and there's not a precedent here. But I also want to make very certain that there is actually a committee that isn't this committee that does have this mandate. And I quote from the National Defense Committee mandate. It says to examine activities, legislation, and expenditures of the Canadian Armed Forces, who is in this case responsible for all the decisions of the Governor General's expenses. So there's an explicit committee responsible for this work, and I'd suggest that that committee do the work in making sure that the department, the Canadian Armed Forces, is responsible for those expenditures, because it's clearly in that mandate. It's right in their mandate itself, and I think they've had precedent for that. They've actually done these before.
Just un second, Mr. Therrien. So, Mr. Desjardins, that is something that I also considered, and being aware that Defense obviously has the ability to look at the Defense Department, being aware that OGO had previously done it, that does not lessen this committee's rights. See, my question is simply, is the motion in order? It's up to committee members at the end of the day to decide if they want to study or not. But the question I looked at is it in order? And just because another department can look at it, or another committee can look at it, or another committee has looked at it, a different motion, doesn't rule out that this committee could consider it. So that's the basis that I've based this decision on, to allow debate to continue, and before we wrap up at some point, this committee members will decide whether or not the motion will go ahead or not. So there's a couple of hurdles to get over here. The first one obviously is to proceed with the debate, and then there'll be a vote on that debate to proceed with a study or not. Yes, Mr. Fragas.
Based on everything we've heard, and with great respect, because it does not sound like you're going to change your view on the matter as to whether or not the motion is in fact in order. Based on everything we've heard, I move that we challenge your ruling and vote accordingly.
So that's your right to do so. I did see. Did you have a point? I did see his hand wave, and I should have probably stopped you. But do you have a point you want to make?
Mr. Chair, if I could, just to go into Mr. Desjardins' point about this is into the debate. The items that he's raising about the relevance or not is not ruling. The motion is in order. Whether he believes or whether we believe that this needs to be studied or not, debate should be had on the merits of that, I believe. So, ruling in or out, I believe from a technical perspective it's allowed. And I would say the debate on this could be part of the main debate, not as a challenge to the validity of it.
Puis, Mr. Therrien.
Très rapidement, écoutez, mon collègue vient de payer.
Very quickly, my NDP colleague stated that it could be national defense, but this comes back to.
Mr. Fragas is going to say, and I have to call. Pardon me, Mr. Fragas, you kind of jumped the queue there. I had other people in line. But having said that, you have challenged the chair, so it goes to a vote right away. There is no debate on this. So, and so I'm going to call for a recorded vote. Do you have a? I do the vote. Oh, you do the vote. Perfect. So we're going to have it recorded, and so the clerk's going to call your name, so you will vote to uphold the chair, or you'll explain it.
The question is, shall the ruling of the chair be sustained? So I call the opposition in alphabetical order, and then the government members in alphabetical order. So, Mr. Bragdon.
So just can you just so.
So if you vote yes, it means that you're upholding.
Right. So if you vote yes, the debate continues. If you vote no, the debate ends.
I am upholding the decision of the chair.
Okay, Mr. Duncan.
Yes.
Mr. Patzer? Monsieur Therrien?
Oui.
Monsieur Desjardins? No. Madame Bradford? No. Mr. Dong? No. Mr. Fajakazis?
No.
Ms. Shanahan? No. Ms. Yip?
No.
Five yeas, 6 nays.
Very good. So this is the end of the motion and the debate. I will suspend the meeting so we can go into camera to now discuss the public counts 2021. Oh, they're very good. Yes, thank you very much. Pardon me. That is just the first one.
We have 2 motions before us.
Yeah. We were only dealing with one. Pardon, Monsieur Terrien.
My apologies, Monsieur Terrien.
Pardon me. We were discussing motion number 1. So now we're going to turn to motion number 2. Mr. Terrien, could you please introduce motion numéro 2, s'il vous plaît?
Motion number 2, please, regarding the Auditor General. All right. For motion 1, there's no amendment possible or changes that could be made? There couldn't be a friendly amendment from another party that would change the content so we could resume the debate on it? No, I'm sorry. The committee decided that we would not proceed with motion number 1, so that's done. All right. So I'll read the second motion, if you'll allow me, Mr. Chair. I'll read it slowly. That the committee mandates the chair to send a letter to the Auditor General of Canada strongly recommending to investigate the expenses and costs incurred by the Governor General of Canada from public funds in her capacity as Canada's representative at home and abroad since her appointment on July 6, 2021.
Commentaire aussi.
Questions and you have any comments? Yes, I had started my comments and then for whatever reason, I don't know if I need to start again because it's been a while. It's been so long since I spoke. All right, so 47 people. No, I'll start over. The Governor General, 29 people invited, and 17 crew and logistics and security members. A little bit more than $80,000. 2 breakfasts, 3 lunches, snacks, refreshments. That's part of the expenditures. It's surprising. When I looked at the numbers at the beginning, I was very surprised. We were looking at $92,000 or $91,000 for a 9-day period. That was already expensive. Breakfast to lunch, dinner, we didn't know if they were eating on the plane, drinks included, we didn't know. But what's surprising is that amount of money, which was paid by National Defense. Oh, I'm sorry, we have a point of order.
Point of order. I would just like to say that the OAG only carries 3 main types of legislative audits: financial audits, performance audits, as well as special examinations, and that the OAG examines programs and not incidences, and this is an incident. And also we can, as we have already discussed, we cannot compel the AG to study a particular report. And I do feel that this particular study does not belong in this committee, but in other committees, as we have previously just discussed.
So on the first point, I think those are items of debate, and you're welcome to move an amendment to the motion if you like. On the second point, again, I'm going to rule that this motion is in order, and debate should proceed on it.
Chair?
I tell you what, Mr. Rex, I'm not going to hear any points of order on it, but you are welcome to challenge the chair.
And that's what I'm going to do. I was about to say, I hold you in high regard and work well with you, and but I based on the fact that the previous motion was we said what we said there. I fail to see how this one would be in order, or challenge the chair on that.
There's no debate on that, Mr. Duncan, so we'll have to turn to a vote right away.
So the question is, shall the ruling of the chair be sustained? Mr. Bragdon?
Yes, the ruling shall be sustained, the ruling of the chair.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Patzer?
Yes.
Mr. Terrien?
Oui.
Mr. Desjardins?
No.
Madam Bradford? No. Mr. Dong?
No.
Mr. Fajakas?
No.
Ms. Shanahan? No. And Ms. Yip?
No.
So 5 yeas, 6 nays.
Very good. This motion is also, the debate ends on this motion as well. Before I jump to, as I did before, to move to suspend the meetings, I don't think there's any other points to discuss in public. We've dealt with the two motions. Yes, Mr. Desjardins.
Just a question to maybe the clerk or the chair in regards to, like, I support, of course, the investigation of this issue, but in a different committee. But does this committee have any relevance to ask another committee to do this work?
I don't believe so, no. No. Yeah, no.
During debate, Mr. Chair, not now.
Okay.
No.
They had the opportunity, we voted that down, to have a conversation about it,
No,
so.
Mr. Duncan, yeah, that's the point. No, that would take a motion if you want to come back with it, but that needs 48 hours.
That's okay.
But nothing on the spot. Meeting for a few seconds so we can return in camera.
Mm-hmm.